All right. Thanks again for being here. Appreciate it. My name is Rick Boone. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for taking real estate classes here in the summer. Um, I feel like most people, students I have coming into the summer, are like super dedicated and motivated to get through these. And so I want to give you some real practical information tonight. I'm going to talk to you my goals for you tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, kind of where I'm coming from and where I'm landing here at IVC, and give you some background there as far as what I'm bringing to the table in these classes. I'm also going to discuss with you a little bit of the licensing requirements and why most of you are taking these classes, and hopefully answer any questions that come up there. Again, if you have questions that come up while I'm talking, please do use the chat. And then if you really want to talk out loud or ask a question out loud, please do raise your hand, or we can wait till the end and I can do an open-ended kind of Q&A at the end there. A little bit about me, a little bit about the DRE requirements and what that's looking like. Some of you may have questions about some of the new law changes that have just come down the pike. I also want to talk about the requirements that you'll have in this class or in these classes. I'm teaching three classes at the same time right now. So, real estate principles, real estate practice, and legal aspects of real estate, all which can count towards your licensing, your salesperson's license exam. And so the requirements of this class, kind of how those align, whichever class you're in. And then also, I want to make sure it's super clear for you um, how to accomplish your goals in these classes. So if your goal is to get an A, I'm going to show you tonight how you can get an A. And it's not hard. You will have to put in time, but it's not hard to get an A in this class. I've structured these classes to be flexible, with some boundaries, with some due dates. But the flexibility, I find, does help a lot of students. And with that flexibility, I'm also giving you some background kind of into business. You need to be able to manage your own time. You need to know what's required of you, and to accomplish those goals, you have to do A, B, and C, right? So I want to show you exactly what's required of you tonight, to do well. There was a question that came up into the chat about buying an access code. I'm not going to address that question yet, but I will address it in this meeting. Talking about accessing the book, accessing Canvas, and everything that you're going to need for these classes, one or multiple classes that you're in right now. Access code, calling bookstore. Okay, yeah. Some of you, if you're buying access codes, if you do not have some people in this class might have some sort of credit at the bookstore, or funding through the bookstore to use. If you have that, it might make sense for you to order an access code online through them. Unfortunately, I've had some students tell me that that can take sometimes a week to 10 days for you to get that code. Um, if you have that access to the bookstore or potential funding there, and you are going to use that, I do suggest, if you can, drive to campus to go and pick up that access code, and so you can use it right away. Or alternatively, if you have no ties to the bookstore at all, I'll show you what link you can use. It's actually a little bit less expensive, to buy it directly through the website, the publisher website, to access the content, pretty immediately. But I totally get, if you have, credit or some sort of funding through the bookstore, like, I totally get wanting to use that money. Um, so it can take a while. So in our short 8 weeks, I don't want you to get too far behind or feel overwhelmed. So let me give you a little bit of information about me. My name is Rick Boone. Nice to meet you. If you've taken another class with me, I'm sorry for having to go through this with you, but I feel like it's helpful for you to know, like, where I'm coming from, not just as a teacher, but from my experience. And that way, hopefully, I can expand your perception of what real estate is a little bit. I came a little non-traditional up through real estate, and I love to be able to tell my students that whatever you can dream up, so long as it's legal, you can figure out how to make money doing it in real estate. There is no one way to do this industry, and creatively thinking and problem solving is a huge part of how to be successful in this industry. And so, I got my license in 2002. Never intended to be a real estate agent. I had a conversation with my brother-in-law at a holiday dinner, and he said, "Hey, well, you should read this book." And it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you've heard of it. And so in that book, a lot of concept is talked about, passive income, and the idea that somebody else is making money for you without you having to work for it. And so we started talking about investments and investing into real estate. And he had a friend who bought and sold apartment buildings. And so immediately that was kind of my first leg or interest into real estate was more from the investment perspective. And so I said, okay, he said, you got to go get your license and figure out how to do this and, see what's a good deal and what's not a good deal so that we can invest someday. And so I went to Orange Coast College and just like you was sitting in my real estate principles class. And, day one or week one, whatever it was, like, oh, teacher, I want to be an agent. I want to sell apartment buildings. And in short, the teacher said, you're going to fail. And I was like, maybe you misunderstood my question. Like, I want to be an investor. I want to help people invest in real estate. And he goes, well, no, you got to sell single family homes if you want to survive. I was like, I don't want to sell single family homes. I want to sell investments. And so basically, he shut me down pretty hard. I was actually convinced that I was going to somehow get this secret that he might have held in his hand, that just wasn't telling me yet. So I met him at a bar. I was like, "Hey, can I buy you a beer?" And so we met at a local bar, bought him a beer. I'm like, "All right, now tell me the story here. How can I do this industry, helping people invest and investing myself?" And he said, "Well, if you don't sell single family homes, you're gonna fail." And so that was my first intro into real estate. I got a D in that real estate principles class. I like telling you that because one, I was super not motivated anymore, right? Because he told me like my dream was not going to happen. But also, I was able to use even with a D, I was able to use that class for my Department of Real Estate salesperson's exam. So a D is not passing at the college level if you want to talk about college credit, but it does count for the Department of Real Estate at least. And so went into apartments, ended up sitting really close to a friend of a friend. Um, that there was two or three guys in there that just sold apartment buildings, and so I listened to everything they had to say. Eventually, I was like, "Hey, I can do that paperwork. Hey, can I help you with that?" So I started outside of trying to learn the business myself, started doing paperwork for kind of like a fee, basically. And then at some point, after helping out a lot, became partners with one of the guys and worked several years. And so for my real estate career, I worked 9 years full time selling apartment buildings, and I enjoyed it. I started teaching at nights, overlapping that 9 years, and just realized that teaching for me was just much more fulfilling. The day in and day out sales part of real estate is kind of wore me down a little bit. And so I still am involved in real estate. I still enjoy real estate. I haven't represented somebody else in gosh over a decade. But I stay involved myself and try to invest where I can, and am very hands on with like my house and building, and do some consulting too for some companies that look to like sublet. Uh, my sister talked about creative real estate. She has for the last 12 years figured out how to make a life earning money doing real estate, but not what you'd think. You are all familiar with food halls now in Orange County. But 10, 12 years ago, it didn't exist, right? And so she helped build one of the first ones in Costa Mesa and has spent the last 12 years, 12 years working with restaurateurs, excuse me, property owners, investors. Really, I mean, one of her biggest strengths is networking, just bringing people together and helping people kind of matchmaking, if you will, right? Brokering event spaces and spaces for retail and restaurants. So all that to say, I'm coming at this. Oh, and then to overlap that, sorry. As I started teaching at nights, I realized I was doing business day in and day out, right? I was in sales. I was making a living selling real estate, but I realized I didn't really know how to do business, and so I decided to go back and get my master's degree in business. And then as I transitioned into higher education, and when I kind of made that decision, like I don't want to sell day in and day out anymore. I want to kind of move into a different realm. I was able to actually accomplish my doctorate in organizational development and transformational change, which has been kind of interesting. And all that also has helped me, teach business in addition to teaching real estate, which is also a business. I want to make that clear too, right? So that's a little bit about me. I'm hoping that as you're hearing part of my story there, that you're hearing, hey, wow, my dream of doing, whatever, like it's possible, totally possible. I knew a guy that when I was working full time, he only bought for investments for himself. He only bought mobile home parks. He just loved mobile home parks. Like, how random is that, right? But he loved owning the land, and then people paid him rent every month to live on the land, right? And he didn't even really have to maintain it or do anything because the people had their own little boxes on that land. And that was just his thing. That's what he loved doing. And so all that to say, there's no one way to do real estate. The majority of transactions are single family homes. But even if you're going to specialize in homes, there's so many different types of homes and geographical areas, different price points and benefits and different types of properties. So there's a lot of different ways to specialize in this industry. So you're jumping into real estate here, principles, practice, or legal aspects in the summer. I'm assuming you're probably motivated to earn your license and to sit for that salesperson's exam. So the Department of Real Estate does require principles. They require practice. You have to take those two. And then legal aspects is one of the electives that you can take, but there are other electives that you can take. We have several other real estate classes at IBC during the other semesters if you're going to continue taking classes with us. And then there's some other classes too if you've taken or are taking maybe like business law, micro, macro economics, accounting. Some of those classes can also count as the elective class for the Department of Real Estate. They have a defined list on their website, on the DRE. But if you want to reference, if you're already a student at IBC and want to take additional classes, the certificate, it's called Certificate of Achievement Real Estate Sales is the name of that certificate. It's only 3 classes, and you're earning a certificate from the college. But in that list of electives, I have a bunch listed that I've gotten approved with the DRE. So if you're taking business or if you're open to taking other classes you're interested in learning about, you could look at the full list there under the certificate requirements, and those mirror the requirements for the DRE, in addition to giving you some specific options if you want to look outside of the real estate box for that elective class. There's been some recent changes. I actually just got this week a notification from the Department of Real Estate that when you're taking the salesperson's exam, they will not be giving you a calculator anymore. Interestingly enough, there hasn't been a lot of math on that real estate exam for the last 10 years. Sometimes, 2, 3, 4 questions or something. Oftentimes, I instruct students, if you hate math, just skip them and get them wrong. Don't stress about it. But now they're not even giving you a calculator, so they're really taking math kind of out of the picture, really honing in on more of the theory and concepts of real estate. They are not. They are also not going to be giving you for a while. They are giving you a whiteboard and a dry erase marker to kind of take notes as you go through the exam. That also is being removed. So basically, you're not getting anything except for your mouse or whatever they hand you, to do the computerized test at the center. While I'm on that topic, I'll mention to you, I suggest to all of my students, if you're attempting to take your exam at the state, do take a crash course. I know when I took my 3 classes and sent off my application, I got a ton of junk mail saying, "Hey, take this crash course." And no doubt Google is probably honed in on you already because you've been searching real estate schools or something. And you're probably going to be getting ads, for the next 2 years. Uh, so do take a crash course somewhere. There are some local schools if you prefer in person that do it. They're usually like a weekend, 2-day weekend. I taught for a couple years at a local school called Real Estate Trainers. That school does like an in-person kind of crash course, not cheap. I want to say it's a couple $100. We also do have a crash course at IBC, and I'm usually able to offer it at the end of every semester. So if you're taking your 3 classes this semester, this summer session, or if you've taken a couple and this is your last one, I do suggest you take real estate RE 250. It's called exam prep, I think, or license prep or something like that. RE 250. It's a 1 unit class. I'm bringing you the content of a $300 or $400 class, at that real estate school, and giving it to you in 1 unit. Which, if you do the math, I think it's $47 or something for the unit. And then I have you buy some practice questions, which I think is like 20 something bucks. And so pretty inexpensive, but really aimed at preparing you for the state exam. Just a little plug there for your next steps after taking these 3 classes. whether you take it with me or somewhere else, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But do take a crash course. Your success rate goes way up with a crash course because the real estate exam, just like any other state exam, is largely focused on theory and law. It's not about being a good real estate agent. Guess what? Little surprise to you. You can go get your contractor's license and almost know nothing about construction. A lot of it's about law and the rules that you have to follow. You can cut hair really well and try to go get your, barbery license at the state. And guess what? It's all going to be about safety and law. It's not going to be about how to cut hair. And so a lot of these state exams are focused on the practical piece, not necessarily the practical piece, the legal piece behind the practical, if that makes sense. And so, that's where these crash courses come in really handy because they help prepare you not just on the content and what they're gonna ask you questions about, but kind of some tools on how to actually take the exam itself and what to expect in the exam, which for some people can be really, jarring. It's unexpected, what the experience is like. Just kombucha, by the way. I'm not sipping early yet. All right, so this class, I'm gonna do a little bit of screen sharing here. I want you to get eyes on this Canvas shell and the syllabus and what's going to be required of you in the class, and then also lastly, again, how to succeed and do well in the class. If you just want to get through this and get a D, just so you can get credit at the Department of Real Estate, you're not hurting my feelings. All right, so you do what you got to do. If you're working full time, you've got a family at home, and like your kids are, going to bed right now or something, like I totally get it. So don't worry about me. As far as like, oh, I have students that apologize. I'm so sorry I missed that assignment. Hey, I've been an adult student before. It's fine. Life happens. Now that said, I also don't give you your grade. Okay, like, I'll also have students that will say, "Hey, Rick, I really need an A in this class. Can what can I do to earn that A?" It's like, this is all on you, right? I'm here. I'm supporting you. We have lectures. I'm helping you learn. But when you're earning points, you're doing your work. You're earning those points. Sorry, I'm talking and clicking at the same time here. And so I just picked real estate principles. But when you're taking principles, practice, legal aspects with me, these Canvas shells look almost identical. The content is different. The projects, I call them exercises, are different. The books are different, right? But the structure are identical. And the reason I've done that is after teaching these classes for nearly a decade, I've found that a very purposefully simple structure really helps busy students. And so you'll see over here on the menu, super simple. Here's home. We're looking at the home page. I have announcements if you want to go back and look at some old links or old announcements or something. And really, grades. I know you're all going to be concerned at some point about, hey, what am I doing on my grades? But this is where most of the content lives here in the modules. So let me first just look at the home page with you real quick. These are the recent announcements that came up. I'm hoping that you got these in your email. You're here, so at least you all that are here live with me got this in your email. This is just a recap of those. What's great too about Canvas is that one of the things I really like is that you get to control how you get your information. So if you haven't done it yet, sorry, over here under account, you'll see notifications, and you can set up these notifications to email you or text you, like when like when your grade changes, or maybe at the end of the day or at the end of the week when an announcement comes out. Do you want that in your text? Do you want that in your email? So I love the idea that you get to control that in the system. But largely my communication out to you is going to be through these announcements. If you reply to these announcements, I get them and I will email you back. Or if you want to email me directly, my email address is right here. That's going to be the fastest way for you to get me. I'm happy to meet with you kind of one on one or in a Zoom or things like that as well. But I come from a long line of self employment. I didn't tell you the early years, like when I turned 18 and I was making balloon animals for a living, hats and animals and stuff. Um, but I've been self-employed for a long time, and so I kind of run my classes a little bit like that. I get flexibility with that, right? Just like y'all need some flexibility. Uh, but I do, I'll answer emails sometimes at 10 or 11 at night, which I know a lot of teachers don't necessarily do. Some of you may have already seen that from me. Like, what was he doing awake at 2 o'clock? And sometimes I just do that. Um, so our primary system that we're using is Canvas. We have eyes on that right now. The second system that we're going to be using in this class is called Great River Learning, GRL. The book hard copy books are published by Dearborn, and GRL is kind of this virtual delivery of the hard copy content. What's great about this system, so basically this is your book, right? You do not have to buy a hard copy book and hold it in your hand. If you prefer to read that way, you can go buy a book if you want. But this system will have your quizzes, and it will have the final exam in it, the state approved content for the final exam and the quizzes. What's great about this system is I've seen and heard from students over and over again that you can come on and use this on your computer, your tablet, your phone. I have students that will take my entire class on their phone. And so that flexibility I've heard from students is huge. So there's that. This is that second system. We'll get eyes on that as well before the end of our session here tonight. Here's a link to the syllabus, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But you can come back and reference that if you'd like. And again, my email address is here. If you prefer to see information all in one shot, maybe you're a checkbox person and you like checking things off that list, here's every assignment in this class. I spend a lot of time when I'm setting up my online classes to make sure that the dates and assignments are all in place beforehand. And I've found that after years of doing this, that just having that set system in place, and again, purposely simple system here, um, it's very clear for you and you know what's required of you, right? So here's every assignment in here. Now, if this is overwhelming to you, because I can understand that too, if you're going to want to reference and go kind of more week by week, this is where we have our modules. In the modules is also where I have all of the links for the recorded lectures. Again, if you're in principles, practice, or legal aspects, this is all very, very similar. I do have an orientation that I've set up. I did sabbatical. I was grateful to take the opportunity of sabbatical, which I've never had as a self-employed person, but I was able to work on some projects, which was really cool that I don't have time to do otherwise. One of those was creating this orientation, not just for me and my classes, but actually for the whole department. And so this isn't a requirement. Like you don't have to go through and click every one of these. If you've taken my class before, you won't have to watch all these over again. But I have students that will come in and be like, this is my first online class. This is a great place to start. I'm giving you some direction. I'm letting you know kind of what to expect, what support we have at the campus for you, and how some of the systems work in here. I do have a quiz in here, student orientation assessment. This quiz I have is 10 points. Excuse me. This assessment, this quiz is not meant to be hard. You can take it over and over again. Okay. So it's really just a matter of you coming in and going, okay, it's clear now what's expected of me in this class. We are already in the middle of week one, if you can believe it. So here's our week one assignments. You can see login, and I have the link here out to that page. Again, we'll look at this in a few minutes. Actually, I'll just go ahead and open that up. And you have a discussion board that is due. I'm pretty lenient in week one, especially, but this discussion board every other week, we have a hard close on Sunday. You'll see this discussion board is due on Thursday. And so we'll look at this in the syllabus as well. But these discussion boards are due on Thursday, your initial post. And then I'm asking you to respond to 2 other classmates before Sunday. Once Sunday hits, though, Sunday at midnight, we're on to a new week. And everybody else is in a different discussion board having a different conversation. So these have a pretty strict deadline because, I mean, you could go in potentially, I guess, in the future, 2 weeks after the fact, but you're going to be sitting in a room by yourself, right? You're not going to be having a conversation with anybody. And for me, this is where, like, we're not sitting in a classroom together having these discussions. This is where you get to share a little bit about your opinions. There is no wrong answer in these discussion boards, so long as you're explaining your why. You can say whatever it is that you believe about that topic, but I want to see your why, and that's where you're earning some points there. Again, we'll talk about the points in a little bit. You'll see virtual lectures on here. These are recorded. They're on YouTube. You can watch them. You can rewatch them. You can pause them and come back to them. super flexible on your schedule. I'm also asking you in this class, we're doing 2 chapters a week. This is all principles, practice, and legal aspects. We're covering 2 chapters a week. Some of you I know are in 2 or 3 of these classes right now. These are 3 different books. So there's quite a lot of content that you're going to be swallowing in the next 8 weeks. Um, After the first week, it should, first, second week, hopefully you get into a groove there though. So you'll see week 1, there it is, week 2, week 3. Let me give you this. So this is in the modules in Canvas that you're seeing on screen. Let me go ahead and open up the syllabus, and that way I can show it to you kind of in a one screenshot as well as far as the schedule goes. And we'll start on the last page of this syllabus. Oh, that came out super strange. Here, give me a quick sec, sorry. And just for kicks, I'll open up the practice syllabus. There we go. We're going to start on the last page. Again, you have access to this in Canvas on that home page. Sorry for the quick scrolling here. There we go. So here's our 8 weeks in one page. It's going to go by quick. Our first 2 chapters, week 1, you'll see there's a chapter quiz, chapter reading, and chapter quiz. Now, this Great River learning system, I've had students say that they like reading in it, which is kind of nice. Again, you can read it on your phone, tablet, computer, whatever technology you have. One of the things that it has at the end of each section of reading, it has a knowledge check. And it's just a way for you, maybe a little bit more interactive instead of just reading paragraph after paragraph and page after page. It's giving you a little check over the information that you just read, to kind of check for yourself. Oh, did I understand that? Or what is that talking about? These knowledge checks you do not get points for. You don't have to do them to continue on in the chapter. What you will have to do and get points for is at the end of that chapter, there will be a chapter quiz. Now, that chapter quiz, I give you unlimited opportunities to earn your points there. So it's 10 questions, it's 10 points. And if you get 7 points on your first attempt, go back and do it again. If your goal is to get an A in this class, this is an easy way for you to earn those points on your quizzes. Every chapter has a quiz. And then you'll see also week 1 here, discussion board. So every week, again, in lieu of us sitting in a classroom together for a couple hours, you're going to be spending some time in discussion with your peers. And so this really encourages you to understand and read about a concept that I'm asking you about in this discussion board, for example. Well, week 1 is kind of an introduction, just what are you doing here and what do you want to learn? But when you get into week 2 and on, this discussion board relates to these chapters that we're studying that week. So it kind of encourages you to take this concept that I'm asking you about, read some about it, either in the book and or Google it or do your own research to figure out what some pros and cons are about this thing. But you're going to have to understand it enough for you to form an opinion on it. And then again, giving me that why. And what's great about these real estate classes that I've seen is that, not only can we all have different opinions and we can disagree on things, and that's fine. But what's great too is that there's so much life experience that come into these classes. I have high school students that will be in these classes. I have 80-year-olds in these classes, all having a conversation together about real estate. And we're all learning about the same stuff at the same time, right? So it's not just that the elder person might have more experience, because that's not necessarily true. But they will have different perspectives and different experiences. And so these discussion boards are great to be able to have additional learning. And maybe somebody will say something, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like I'm interested in doing that too. So it's really kind of eye opening how these discussion boards go. You'll see when we come into week 3, I throw in a little bit more. I want you to get comfortable in week 1 and week 2 and week 3. I call these exercises, call them a project. The idea behind these for me is taking kind of the concepts and the theory that you're learning about the chapters and in these discussions that we're talking about and putting a perspective of real life into them. So there's a total of 4 of these in the class, in each of the classes. And so they're kind of spaced out a little bit. Here's exercise 1, here's exercise 2 in week 5, exercise 3 in week 7, and exercise 4 in week 8. So I spread them out a little bit so it's not too overwhelming, but it just gives you an opportunity to give some real life perspective to the theory and the concepts, the law that we're learning about in the classes. Some of these I'm trying to update a little bit on the fly. We've had a recent uh, ruling change happen, right, regarding broker compensation to agents representing buyers. Um, there's still another hearing, I think, mid July. So we'll probably be able to discuss stuff in this class, like as the changes are happening. So I've had a lot of students kind of reach out, hey, what does this mean? Oh, this makes being an agent even harder. I think agents are, those agents that are going to stick to it and going to succeed, make money and be able to survive in the industry, you're going to be able to figure it out. It'll pan out. We'll figure it out. But yeah, anytime there's a change, everybody kind of freaks out a bit. How's this going to work in the real world, right? Let me check the chat here real quick since we're still kind of on page here. I had a question. Once we've passed the required classes, principals practice in the third class. How long are they good for at the DRE? Great question. So I've been told by the DRE that your classes, your pre-licensed classes, that's what these are called, don't expire. However, last year and a half ago, there was a law change that requires now specific content inside real estate practice, the course. So the Department of Real Estate made us as course providers actually submit an application to have that course reapproved. So, for example, students that may have taken real estate practice at IVC in say 2022 before the law even changed would not be able to use that practice class. Assuming there's no future law changes like that, I've been told by the DRE that the classes don't expire. So that's kind of a unique experience, a unique change in the content of courses that we saw in the last couple of years that's never really happened before. Kind of a unique scenario, but hopefully that answers your question. I've taken all 3 classes 4 years ago at another community college, passed all 3. I applied for exam in April, but still waiting to hear back. The DRE is slow. Yeah, so the current wait time, last I heard, was 6 to 8 weeks after that application went in. If you've taken all 4 classes, though, I'm not going to say your name, though, because then we have recording issues, but we can chat after the class. My only question that's going to come up and likely going to come up if you took those classes 4 years ago is that they're likely not going to take your practice class, unfortunately. And again, just because the law changed, it wasn't even a DRE decision. It was an assembly bill, I think, that changed that law, and then the DRE had to respond to it because it's a law now. Kind of an unfortunate thing though for students. Good in the sense that we get to revise content and learn about new concepts that we didn't have to have in there before, but it can be a hassle for students. The quizzes question on the chat, are the quizzes time limited? And the answer is no. So you can get those 10 questions. I believe too, I'm trying to remember if those quizzes only have 10 or if they have a randomized feature or a pool of questions. But you can take them multiple times. There's no limit on how many times. Again, if your goal is to get an A in this class, you're going to want to retake all those quizzes till you get 10 out of 10. Not time limited. Oh yes, I appreciate there's some people in here trying to answer each other's questions. So thanks for your help there. Yeah, did not time out. Perfect. Can we prove there was a role play in the practice class that I took? No. So the role play is a really unique requirement too, because you would think that the law and the requirement by the DRE means that we actually have to be live together talking in person, right? To have a role play. But I had to actually take a class for continuing education that also included this requirement. And it was multiple choice online with no teacher and no other students. So the way that these classes were able to prove to the DRE that they're meeting their requirements was kind of unique. And we can cover it in content. But I, as the director of the program, had to submit documentation to the DRE showing them where that content would live in the class. And to be honest with you, we already covered most of it. Um, but we had to show them and had to get reapproved, and that has a specific date set. So 4 years ago, that law didn't even exist, and therefore that there's no way that it would be approved back then, unfortunately. So of course, I can't tell you what the DRE is going to do or say, right? But my guess is that they're probably going to have you retake practice, which is why I'm hoping you're here now, because otherwise you wouldn't have to be taking any of these classes unless you just want to keep learning. Hopefully that answered that question about can you prove what happened last 4 years ago. Do we have Zoom meetings every week? I'm just going to go ahead and hit some of these chat questions because you have questions coming in. I like it. I like it. I also see a hand raised, so I'm going to have you hold on to that question, or feel free to put that in the chat right now. We do not have required Zoom meetings every week. This class, because this is an asynchronous class, which means you are not, as a student, required to be online at a specific day or time. How I meet that teaching requirement for you is all by video. I can offer, and sometimes I do offer more kind of lectures or discussions midweek, but it is not done on a regular basis. So the learning in here is more flexible for you, right? You're not having to sit in a class for 3 hours a week. Um, but there's also going to be kind of more impetus on your own responsibility, right? You have to go in and watch those videos if you want to understand the content more. In my lectures, I really try to put a real life perspective on the content. I do not use like PowerPoint slides, or I don't have like bulleted talks. A lot of times I actually do like on screen writing and do a lot of comparison on different topics so you can kind of see and understand like how different concepts are different. Um, and so you're not actually even, just like sometimes like you can't even be required to show up to class, I guess, in some ways. I can't like require you to watch the videos. But I'll tell you, if you want to understand the concepts more, the videos are going to help you, just to be straight with you. And again, if your goal is to just come through here and, just pass the class, get a C, get a B, whatever, like, you're going to do what you're going to do. So I'm very realistic in my expectations here. If you want to learn, you want to get an A, again, hopefully you're getting a clear picture of what that looks like for this class. To clarify, lectures we have to watch. Yeah, so again, the Wednesday 7 to 8 is just a tonight thing. Again, we may have another one during the next 8 weeks or so, but it's not a requirement that you be here live with me. So if I completed practice and principles in 2019, 2020, they are invalid. Real estate principles should still count. Real estate practice, likely, Marco. Real estate practice will have to be retaken. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I wish there was another way to put it, but you probably find a language about that on the DRE as well, but that's likely. Hmm. Thanks for that heads up on the assessment quiz for principals. I'll double check that access. Oh, there you go. You guys are awesome. Active in the chat, helping each other out. I love it. Yeah, I'll look into that for sure. Perfect. Oh, and you're not for all three classes. Oh, is available. All right, I'll double check it just to make sure. All right, let's move through the syllabus too. I'll just continue through here to make sure, again, you're seeing all of the requirements for you in the class. You'll see these different discussions, the discussion boards, the quizzes, the exercises, all of the different requirements for you I have spelled out right here in their points. And so you'll see that I've weighted the scoring in this class very broadly, in the sense that your whole grade doesn't depend on your final exam only, right? If maybe you're not a great test taker, but you can still squeak out a B or a C on your final, but you're working every week on those quizzes and discussion boards, you can still get an A in this class. Or maybe you had a bad week. Somebody asked, "Hey, I'm going to be out of town for 10 days. I can't avoid the trip. I have to be gone. Do I have to drop? Can I still take this class?" Well, realize that you're probably going to be missing some points in here, but that one bad week is not going to dictate your final grade, right? There's enough points in here where you can miss a week and you're still going to be okay. Again, because of the chapter quizzes, the fact that you can redo those over and over again to get the most points, that gives you a lot of flexibility in earning this full points here. Those discussion boards, more rigid on the deadlines, but there's a rubric in there, and I'm going to grade week 1 with you really quick after you get it done, so that by week 2 you're going to have a really clear picture of what you need to do in there. But basically, for 5 of these 10 points, you're going to be posting your initial response to the question. Again, week 1, I'm asking you to introduce yourself. If you're taking multiple classes, you can use the same post. Week 2 and week 3, those discussions are all going to be different concepts, though. 5 points for making your first initial post, another 5 points for responding to 2 of your peers in the class. You'll see the exercises. There's 4 of them. Those are 20 points each. Again, these are not meant to be hard, but they will take some time. I give really clear step-by-step directions on what I expect from you. And the idea here, again, is just taking some real life and overlapping that real life with the concepts and theories that you're learning about in the chapters. And then the final exam, at the end of the day, we're all prepping for a big test, right? When you go sit at the state and you're taking that multiple choice test, I want you to be prepared. So this is our baby steps in getting you prepped up and ready. This is a multiple choice test on your computer, just like what you're going to be taking at the state. Not identical questions, right? But the function of it is going to be similar. Understand, of course, an F in the class means no credit for IBC, but also no DRE credit. I mentioned to you already that it is possible to get a D and actually get DRE credit, and this is the single reason why every semester I have students that will go, "No, I'm going to do a pass, no pass." I've never seen it. I've only seen it hurt people. Usually, pass no pass. When you do that, I've seen pass no pass people, and it's like they get an A or a B, like almost every time. If you get a no pass, though, if you get a D in this class, but you select pass no pass, a D means no pass for IBC, which means no credit at the DRE with no pass. If you have a letter grade of a D, although that's not good at IBC, it does still give you credit at the DRE. So I do not like pass no pass for these real estate classes. Of course, you can make your own decisions for yourself, but that's my 2 cents. If you're just doing this to learn, you don't really care about your grade, still the letter grade is the default. I would say leave it alone if you asked me personally. Final exam. I haven't mentioned this yet, but there are actually 2 final exams, version 1, version 2. I'm giving you, after all this stuff, right? And you're hearing about the flexibility, you're hearing about the diversity of points and the different assignments, you're hearing about the structure of the class, but also the flexibility from week to week, or within the week, if you want to put it that way. So the final exam has version 1. If you score less than 60% on version 1, then you can retake version 2, different questions, right? But you can take version 2 in attempts to score higher than 60%. The requirements of the DRE and the idea of this comes down to the fact that you have to have a D passing in the class, right? So the idea, if you're failing the final, I don't know if those points would work out. But the idea is you're supposed to be getting a 60% or more on the final. And I'm giving you 2 chances to do it. This test is timed. You'll see 2.5 hours, 100 questions. Just like the Department of Real Estate salesperson's exam is timed, right? There's 150 questions and 3.25 hours. I have the same amount of time per question in this math. Quizzes. This is a little bit of old language. The system used to actually lock up if you didn't score an 80 for you to move on and progress from chapter to chapter. The current system with GRL does actually allow you to progress and do multiple chapters without an 80%. But again, if your goal is to get an A, you're going to be doing this anyway. I've already discussed these, I think, pretty thoroughly. My blanket statement, though, too, like I'll have students that will message me every single session in week 6. Oh, I haven't done the last 3 weeks of work. Can I turn it in? Here's going to be my answer to you. I've already said it too. Discussion boards, if that room is closed, you're going to be sitting in a room talking to yourself. That kind of defeats the purpose. Exercises, those have specific due dates. If you're like hospitalized and something serious goes down, please send me an email. Let's have a conversation. Um, but I'm pretty rigid on those due dates for these. The quizzes, I'm giving you flexibility on, right? Because you can go back and retake them over and over again. So there is some leniency in the quizzes as far as due dates go. And again, you saw, sorry to keep scrolling up and down, that's a big chunk of points, right, for those quizzes. So week in and week out, consistency really helps with the discussion boards. It really helps with the quizzes too, because if you try to you know, do multiple chapters in a week, it can get overwhelming. Again, here's my note on late work. This is the IVC grade scale. I didn't make it up. We do not have pluses and minuses. We only have whole letter grades. So at the end of this class, if Canvas shows you that you have an 89%, what grade did you earn? That's a B, right? I'm not giving you a B. You get to earn this letter grade. It's not whether or not I like you or whether you bring your book to class, right? These are just welcome to the real world, right? You got to show up, you got to get your work done. We do have a ton of support at IVC. I've got great colleagues and we have a lot of support systems in place. There's some specific language in here and some links and phone numbers. All of this to say is if you're having a challenge in some way with your learning or with your stuff, your learning materials or whatever, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help. One of the things I love about teaching at community college, my whole job is teaching you and helping you learn and helping you. Um, Different at the universities, right, where they actually have to research and publish and those kind of things. So please do reach out. If you don't want to reach out to me and you just want to, click on some links, call some phone numbers. Hopefully, this information can help you out. Here's our two big links. We're kind of coming close to our end of our time here. We have our Canvas links here. You've gotten emails from me already. Here's our GRL Dearborn website link that you'll be accessing the book on. Those are the two systems that you're going to have to access. You'll see again, the hard copy textbook is optional. But what we're really doing, they actually have a flat, like if you have a Nook or some sort of reading digital, they actually have one of those versions too. But what we're looking for is more of the interactive website, has the quizzes, has the final exam. There's the website link again. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to drop. If you just stop showing up and stop turning in things, but your name is on my roster at the end of this class, I have to give you a letter grade. Learn from my mistakes when I just stopped showing up to welding class at OCC. And I thought, oh, I'm just not going to show up anymore. The teacher's going to drop me. That F did not help me when I went to apply for my master's program. So it's your responsibility. I will not drop after this week. If there's a no show this week, I have to drop you. After this week, you are in the class. All right, let me look over. Oh, here's my contact information on our class, specifically drop dates and whatnot. Please check these on my site, but I try to put them here to be helpful for you. I don't have scheduled office hours over the summer, but I am available. Again, I mentioned, please email me. You can call this phone number, but it's to my office at campus, so you're going to have to leave a voicemail. You can do that. I do get them forwarded to me. But again, the quickest is going to be email. And even if it's, hey, Rick, can we talk tomorrow on Zoom? I'll send you a link and we can do that. But that's going to be the quickest reply. All right, let me switch over to the GRL site just real quick so you can get eyes on that. So when you click on that link for GRL, Great River Learning, did not open. There we go. this is what you will see. So if you've purchased a book from him in the past, you can just sign in like I have here. Or if you have not, you're going to see this link down at the bottom that says purchase. It's pretty kind of self explanatory. You're going to look up Irvine Valley College. This is not Chinese. There we are. Principles, practice, and a law, which is legal aspects. Legal aspects of real estate law are used interchangeably, those two terms. So when you click on that link and click next, it's going to give you the actual section, right? That's right now. That's me. Oh man, it went up. I'll have to check that pricing. I thought it was cheaper. Pretty much like buying anything else online, right? You enter your information, your email address, password, click next. Takes you through to a pay site. D670. I'm curious now what the other. Sometimes law books are unique. People think lawyers are unicorns. Like, oh, the lawyer, they know everything. No, this is wrong. Okay, so I apologize for this, but I'm glad I caught this with you. So this is totally wrong, but look at the book is wrong too. Deciphering Dance. So I'll talk to the publisher. I'll send them an email tonight, and they're back east, so they'll get it like early in the morning tomorrow. Anyhow, again, there's some leniency here when we're doing the quizzes. Yeah, that one's right. One of the niceties, though, in addition to the flexibility of these online versions, they have this data approved content, but they're actually still cheaper than the hard copy books too. Oh, there it worked that time. Weird. Okay. Anyhow, so that's the GRL system. When you sign in and you go through all of this, you will get an email access code. I think pretty much right away you can log in and start reading away. Hopefully that gives you a clear picture of what's expected of you. You can see with the points, again, if you want to do well and if your goal is to get an A in here, I'm hoping that you're seeing exactly how you can do that. I think I've had all of the questions answered in the chat. The only thing I have to follow up on based on these interactions in the chat, I think, is with that assessment quiz. So I'll double check on that. So having answered all the questions in the chat, and we're like right close to our 8 o'clock, I want to respect your time. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And then if there are any additional questions, I'm happy to answer those if you want to just talk or raise your hands. Thanks again for being here. Appreciate your time. And as questions come up through the class, please do feel free to reach out. I'm glad to help you get through this, and we're working together to accomplish your goals here. All right. Thanks for being here.